What are they running on Sundays?
Every other Sunday they switch. So Rory's DMing his. It's a Greyhawk game, but it's separate from what John's doing. But he starts a little later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So this week it's him, and then next week it's John's. Out of that group, the Altamira group.
Yeah.
I do have a stack here of Sean's works that I have, so some of them.
Yeah. Cool. He has done a lot of stuff. He's been.
Yeah, I mean the Pathfinder stuff is extensive, super extensive.
Yeah, but he was. Yeah, but I had to ask him. But I think it was at least 10 years at Paizo, maybe probably more. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Everything looks good. Sound looks good. Doesn't look like I forgot anything. I got a message from Casey, got him from vacation today. Thanks for checking in. So he says he thinks we're good.
Oh,
So,
good. Perfect. Yep.
Yep.
Then we'll see if we can do another My Greyhawk, or we come up with something for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah. I got to make sure that I don't have an obligation the night before Thanksgiving as well. That Wednesday night
true.
sometimes is a family or group event, so I'll check on that. Because then I can always flip it to a Monday or Tuesday. But I'll know during the week. So,
Yep, good. Yep.
Always checking. I'm like, there's got to be something I forgot. But it looks good. Hey, sure. Hey, Alex.
Hello.
Check Wednesdays, Dale. I know. It's the holidays coming up. I know the feeling, man. We were just talking about before Thanksgiving and how that'll be a little rough for any of us. What's going on, Alex? Whew.
Of the many ancient civilizations of the world, none can surpass the grand majesty of ancient China.
Here he comes.
One of the oldest and longest lasting civilizations in the history of the world, going back over 4,000 years. Troller Games is proud to announce our latest Mythos series project, the Codex Sinai.
Hello there.
Hey, Sean.
Hello.
You can't
to
see
see you
me.
again.
I got sponsor ads up right now running. So good evening.
For castles and crusades.
They can hear us, but they can't see us yet. Yep.
Yes.
With almost
Hear you loud and
200
clear.
more
Oh, I love your
Chinese
background. It
Yeah,
looks
nice.
awesome.
and over
Yep.
140
Darlene
Thanks.
map.
The Codex Sonorum is
I'm gonna
filled
plug in
with
earphones
monsters,
just so I don't
gods,
give you guys any feedback.
warriors,
Yeah, sure.
and
Take your
more on
time.
a level that will be truly
Alex, I don't
legendary.
know. Chuck
Told in a
didn't
narrative
respond to
through
me
the
today.
Chinese history. It introduces the basics of Chinese martial arts.
Yesterday kind of
and
said
is
go with the
complete
Troller
with
Game
theme
giveaway, so I'm
and the
doing
many
it. So
legendary abilities associated with it. Ancient complex systems of sorcery, spellcraft, and fortune telling.
all right.
Even enchanted
Go
charms are
here.
explored as well.
Yep.
Players can live out their characters' adventures in tales set in popular Chinese fantasy styles like wuxia and more, while within a pseudo-historical
Good
setting
old Chuck. You
and
can
brought
read
to
the
life
script
by
here
the
too.
castle keeper
Just
or
kidding.
game master. Researched and written by Brian
Yeah,
Young.
they've been
the
sending out a
wildly
lot of
popular
stuff. I get
Mythos
email about
series
new cool
delves
stuff
Oh,
almost
they
every
got
week.
stuff like
Mythos of the ancient
TLG's got
world,
stuff
bringing
stacked
hosts
every
of gods and
month.
heroes,
They got new
legends
stuff
and
coming
lore,
out, which is great
and
for
even
us
the
too.
monsters
You
and
know,
foes that plague the
for you and
peoples of
me.
ancient
So
times, to the
Yep.
stories that you create. The Codex Sonorum brings ancient China to your table.
Yep.
Join us and pledge today.
got some minutes here.
Trollord Games.
Sean's trying to connect up.
fray.
You good? Let's see here. I gotta hit
I
it.
think
Yeah. It
Awesome.
took me a second. It wasn't routing to my ears for some reason. Can you hear me okay? Is
You're
my level
clear.
good?
You're
Yep, we
crystal,
can hear you
Okay, great.
perfect,
crystal clear.
perfectly.
And that's
Yep.
I hit it wrong. That's the first wrong button of the night, audience.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So there, I'll wrong button myself. How's that sound?
Yep.
In chat.
Wrong button. Emojis. Yep. And Javen even has a wrong button emoji in chat,
Yes.
so they can use
and it's
press the wrong
yes,
button.
and it's actually an animated one even because it's happened so much.
Yep.
Oh man, got a nice stack of stuff here. Yeah, that was a nice effect. Dun, 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 dun. You like that? Yeah, that's funny, Alex. Me, old school DJ. Very cool. Let me see here. We got, okay. People are rolling in here after last night's game.
That was a good game.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a monster crowd too, and monster support from the community. And Ed had a good. Ed, Eric, and Tony, and all the Slavs had fun time.
Yep. Yeah, we had Ed Greenwood and Eric Boyd and a whole bunch of others. They played a game last night. Jade, so yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Got the FR guys going.
Yeah.
Definitely a blast with those. Only one more sponsor out here. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
And we're going to have Ed Greenwood on next Friday talking about Forgotten Realms geography and
His original
cartography.
maps, he's gonna come on. He
will
said he
be
has
from-
stuff there to share in person.
Yeah,
so
from the fantasy mapping show. That
some
will
of
be.
the other stuff.
That's the dream show I've always wanted to do is to have talk about him and how he created the setting and stuff from that perspective.
You know, what I love is after I started at TSR and then I ended up going through some old Dragon archives because we were digitizing old Dragon magazines, and there are some old articles there from before the Realms was a published campaign setting by TSR. And so Ed had written he'd written articles for Pages of the Mages, and
Yeah.
he'd be like, well, in the Forgotten Realms, parenthetical, my home campaign. It was just his home
cool.
campaign back then.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Definitely.
Yep.
I took in fact, from Pages for Ages, I took a book, Galadaster's Origin, in Greyhawk, and his character, who's a Greyhawk mage, a specialty class, actually discovered it in the party adventuring. So, I pay a little homage to Ed there. He deserves it. Let's see, let me hit that button there. So, people are rolling in. Good evening. We're going to start early like we always do. So, when Gary Julian gets on, he yells at us, "You're on already!" So
Yeah, we have to babble a bit for 3 minutes or something. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll hear him. Yeah. Tell. Oh man, really looking forward to this discussion. I know last time, Sean, it's been 2 years. I looked back.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago. I had you and in that 1 hour shot. We split the time. The Monte Cook gentleman.
Yeah, Bruce Cordell.
Yeah, with Bruce. And that was a great night. This weekend.
It'll be a great
Some
follow-up.
death stuff. Well, goblins and warlocks. Remember, we start at 7, so and sponsors pay some of the bills here.
That's why they get a half hour of
And the giveaways. Yeah.
Yep, and the giveaways. Yep.
Curtis, we'll see how your 49ers do tonight. I have fun. They're going to win. I know. So watch. We'll go. Oh, man. Did I update this next screen? I hope I did. Oh, boy. In the lounge at Lord Peaks Haven. There we go. Yep. For a second, I was like, oh, no, I forgot. That's good, Curtis. That Buffalo Vikings game was insane today, Curtis. We saw that. That was one of the most nuts games I've ever seen in my life. So, back to D&D here.
Yeah, you can dig into sports too.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of those.
Are you a sports fanatic too? I only have one hobby, and that's D&D. No, I'm gonna say it's work and so much crazy.
I already got the giveaways for Troller Games at 20 and a $10 gift certificate rolling. So you guys can already, guys and girls start hitting exclamation point drawing. All right, I just started up because I don't want to forget. So, all right, 4 minutes early. That's good enough, right? That's good.
Yeah, it's good enough.
That's good.
Yeah.
We'll come live here. So good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm glad to see everyone on tonight for another Gabbin, another real nice chat. And tonight we have someone who's returning, and it's been 2 years.
Yep.
The great Sean K. Reynolds, right? You like the K in your publications, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Sean, great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, love the background. The great
Yes,
Darlene map.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's been a while, and I know we've kind of communicated a little bit here and there over the era, and in particular with something you may have accidentally given to me that I ran. We could talk about that a little later. We'll talk about that.
I'm coming into this almost completely blind. Like you said, we're going to talk about A and B, and I'm like, wow, I have not read those things that I wrote in 20 years.
And that's
cool.
No problem, because I know Anna's going to come at it from a different direction and some questions too.
Jay will deep dive into it. I'm interested in your creative process and inspiration and stuff like that. So I will ask a bunch of questions, because as a creative myself doing stuff like this, I'm always interested in other people's process and how they go about things and stuff. So so it won't all just be reminiscing about the good old days there of Greyhawk lore, but Sean, there's been a huge resurgence, and the communities have grown over the last 2 years, 2.5 years. We've had our con multi 3 years. We have this mega fundraiser, and it's our 5th annual one coming up for St. Jude in February. We raised $20,000 last year. The community is really doing well, and we find these tidbits, and the reason I'm bouncing around here is you did a ton of stuff. And we'll get to that too. Living Greyhawk journals, you're through them. I mean, and I had never really read those articles and like all the creatures you have in there. It's just wonderful stuff. So I'm really looking forward to just sharing that, reminiscing a little bit. But could you tell the community a little bit about yourself, and then how you started at TSR and your journey through to where you are today, if you don't mind?
The short version of that is I was active on the internet in 1995, and there was a bunch of controversy about TSR and what you could post from your home campaign. And I got into a lot of arguments with the online rep for TSR. And then he got permission to hire someone to do that full time. And I applied and I got the job, and then he quit. And so I took over all of TSR Online. And then when Wizards bought TSR, I came over to Washington along with the rest of the creative services crew. And I had done a little bit of RPGA adventure writing, and they told me that there was a design position opening up, and I applied and I got it. And I started working on 2nd edition Greyhawk. and then 3rd edition Greyhawk and 3rd edition, 2nd edition Forgotten Realms. And since then I've done video games and card games and come back to Wizards and worked on Pathfinder for 6 years. And now I'm at Monte Cook Games as a designer and developer for Numenera and Cypher System and our 5e compatible stuff.
Okay.
And in between there, you had a huge career at Paizo with a ton of Pathfinder content too. I mean, when I go in and just take a look at your works, I mean, I think there's more Pathfinder publications than there are TSRs.
Yeah, we hit the point a couple of years ago where Wizards had owned D&D longer than TSR had.
Right.
So it doesn't surprise me that the numbers kind of stack up eventually in the newer companies. It's funny to think of Wizards as a newer company, but technically it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I looked at my quasi resume page on my old defunct website, and just scrolling through, like, oh yeah, there's like 40 different books that I worked on for writing, and another 40 or 50 that I did development for. It was a very busy 6 years.
Yeah, so I have some here that from this era. Living Girl Gazetteer, TSR Jam 99. You got Adventure in there. Slavers, which is just one of my favorites of all time. Star Cairns, Crypts of Lizard, The Mad, and then some Forgotten Realms, Lords of Darkness, Magic of Faerun, and then you think you did Champions of Light too, as well. I don't have that.
I think so. Yeah. Champions of Valor. That was
Champions of Valor. That's it. And then I think that am I getting this one right? The big one that everyone always talks about that you and Monty did. It's kind of obscure. Is Ghost Walk?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw that one up here.
Very interesting book because it has such a different perspective from almost anything else, and I need to read that again now. So yeah.
And it was one of the last 3rd edition books too. It came out right before 3.5, which is actually kind of why it slipped out under everybody's radar, because it was written a year before that, just kind of stuck in a closet for a year, and they finally decided to publish it. And it was published literally 2 months before the 3.5 PH came out. And so immediately the entire book was slightly out of date, and I had to do a big giant web enhancement converting all of it to 3.5.
Oh, wow.
But it's still kind of cool because it's a concept that hasn't been touched that often. And let's, for the viewers that haven't known about, it's that you can continue to play your character after death, so to speak, in kind of a ghostly form or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, pretty neat, or pretty neat stuff. And then during that 3rd edition era, you did some publications with Monty before, like he had that whole series that they were still publishing in the D20, right? And you have a bunch of those. I have a couple of them that'll show up here. So BOVD was right on the edge too. BOVD. Which one's that, Dale? Because I don't know all the terminology, or I should.
Book of Val Darkness.
There you go.
That was all Monty.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Thank you, Dale, for that.
Had to have like a big content warning sticker on it.
Yes, I was going to say that was the age when D&D really kind of pushed the envelope in almost every direction, so to speak, for some years, which is kind of cool in a way, but kind of worrisome too. But it was kind of interesting. That was an interesting era, so to speak. And
it's funny to watch the path of that, because we had basic D&D, expert D&D, 1st edition D&D, and then 2nd edition came along, and we weren't allowed to say demons and devils anymore.
Yes.
And then 3rd edition comes out, and it's like, here's demons, here's devils, here's the Book of Vile Darkness. Just be gross.
It was like 10 years of pent up. We couldn't say any of it. Now we're going to give you the whole shebang and then some, so to speak.
Yeah, we just discussed recently James Jacobs' adventure in Scuttle Cove that goes with that Book of Vile Darkness, and man, that's pretty nasty out of the dungeon. But I know there was a lot of pushing the envelope at the end of that era. There was a lot of experimentation, which is I guess it's long bygone as far as those things. But when you got into TSR and you were doing a lot of your work, publication wise, was your first main? I tried to get the timeline together. Is it Star Cairns, your first one in '98?
That's the first thing that I wrote all by myself. Okay. But my first actual published adventure, other than like little RPGA things that didn't that were like hand printed and didn't get much circulation. Oh, hello.
Wrong button.
Yeah.
There's not wrong button. My bad. There's Slavers, but yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But my first actual solo, wrote it myself 100%, is Star Cairns. But my first published credit for a full book is Children of the Night Ghosts.
Oh, okay.
For Ravenloft.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I didn't locate that. Were you doing Forgotten Realms at that time too?
I mean, because I did stuff for the RPGA, a lot of stuff was associated with various new Forgotten Realms books that came out, but nothing that was like branded like how the Star Cairns has, the big color cover and the logo on it, that sort of thing.
So this was almost like we're gonna go there, everyone. This is like a three-part series almost. Star Cairns, which there was always the mystery behind them because they were mentioned in the Free City Greyhawk box set, and like, oh wow, there are these, there's apparently 4 of them, or roughly know where they are, but the 5th one's a mystery. Who handed you off with this? Let's like run with this. If you recall.
Well, at the time, I was working on the Greyhawk team, and so the creative director for Greyhawk was Lisa Stevens, who is, one of the owners of Paizo.
Yeah.
And I was working with editor Roger Moore, who obviously had worked on tons of Greyhawk stuff for 2nd edition. And so he just gave me all the notes on what had been said about the Star Cairns. And we kind of came up with a general idea of, well, what if it is this? That sounds good. And we just rolled forward on that. And the idea was that everybody assumed that these 4 were the 4 sides of a pentagon, and they kept looking for that 5th corner of the pentagon. And I said, well, what if it's actually they're forming a V, they're pointing at something, and so they're actually looking in exactly the wrong direction for that, and that's where the secret Star Cairns there is actually located.
As is a lot of the publications of this era, and in particular Slavers, there are really many settings with an adventure strewn about through. And I love the genius of that. And that's kind of what you have here. You're not going to be running through all 5 Star Cairns, within a short period of time. And you can mix in other adventures. I love the maps. It was really, it was nicely done. It really was. And you have a nemesis in here, and as a necromancer. Her name is Yellick. And I have her repeatedly returning, tied in with something you did in Slavers, which we can discuss. But I really like these. And kudos for being your first one on your own. It has a Greyhawk feel to it. And definitely. Now I'll be honest with you, Lizardred I never ran. I never ran Lizardred because, quick story, Sean, I got that book and I got Doomgrinder at the same time. And I opened Doomgrinder up and I froze. I'm being nice. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I was like, what a great, I don't want to badmouth anyone. It's not one of my least favorite adventures of all time with Greyhawk. It just is like,
that's totally fair.
Yeah.
You're allowed to dislike and like different things. That's fine. So, and it's not personal to me because I didn't write that
exactly.
one. So.
I know. But the series of 3 here, was cool that it was done at least, and that hopped you into that and Lizardred hopped you into, like I said, one of my favorites of all time.
Slavers.
This is by far one of the best 3, in my opinion, publications.
And it's very much a setting book as much as an adventure and module. And I love when you get like a lot of the additional material and you describe the world and stuff. That is dynamite to me. It's really cool.
So when we had Chris Pramus on, Sean, I asked him some questions. Who did what? And he said he did like the spellcaster end of it. He did the specialty priests and he did the deity part. I want to, if it's okay, I want to ask you a question or two. And if you don't remember, it's all right. Whose idea was the multiple Marquesses?
That's all me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Okay. All right. Because it's like genius. And if you know, Carlos Lysing has written multiple adventures off of that.
Follow-ups, like 3 or 4 follow-ups.
Absolutely.
Afterwards.
And Marquessa the green, you have a Marquessa that kind of hasn't gone bad. She got the red, the black, the gold. I made my own. I made a silver for my campaign. And it's also a shame in this. The artwork is so fantastic. And then before COVID, I saw Wayne Reynolds at Gen Con, and I would have paid any amount for it. I wanted the Marquesa and Devon picture in here, and he said that they were all destroyed. And that was so sad. I mean, they're just brilliant. It's just brilliant work in this book. Here's Marquesa the Gold. So, all right. So we know you are the Marquesa person, which is fantastic. There's some really great, unique magic items like the Saber of Storms and the Mouth of a Graveyard. Yours?
I think so.
Okay. All right. I'm asking you stuff that's in my campaign that I just love so much. The Mouth of the Graveyard is and you'll love this, everyone. It's a spirit of a paladin imbued into this bastard sword that it's either broad or bastard sword that she actually will talk to the wielder, and that's in my campaign as well. And it gives the wielder more powers. And Bill the Master Crafter, one of his characters, has the sword. So it's another fantastic thing. As far as the idea behind this, Sean, was to almost do settings up and down the coast. And let me just throw the map out here. When you and Chris were putting them together, what was your go-to plan on this, if you remember?
Well, I believe at the time we didn't think we were going to get permission to do like a full campaign setting for Greyhawk. I mean, we had the Greyhawk, The Adventure Begins. I think it was a 96 or 128 page book that Roger Moore put together, but nothing like the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. And obviously the 3rd edition Living Greyhawk Gazetteer wasn't even on the horizon yet. So in the spirit of those old Greyhawk adventures, we said, well, how about we just try and make setting material as part of these adventures? And since the Pomage was not going to get its own book, we're like, well, let's just do, when we update Slavers, let's bring it up to the current timeline. Let's put a lot of detail in all those places that you can visit, so you could run a campaign about the Slavers and deal directly with the Slavers, but also have all this other stuff going on that you could just add to. And Greyhawk is very much we're going to give you some bare bones material that the GM can add their own flavor to. So we were trying to just flesh out stuff that had been just barely touched on in the Pomage before. And suddenly the way we kind of saw it was half of that book was adventure material and half of it was source book. And so I think it was a 96 page, 128 page book?
It's in that range.
So the idea of hey, we'll do 64 pages of setting material, that's pretty rich.
Yeah.
Let me see here. It's it's 128, definitely. And small print too. So you had a lot of wonderful things here. So for example, the Star Cairns, and you're dead on. The one thing I liked about Carl Sargent from The Ashes is he'd put these 2 paragraphs in on something and then let you run with it. And you did the same thing in this publication, which makes it so good. So you have the high pass, and all you put in there is there's rumored to be a coven of female necromancers up there. And that's it. I mean, there's not much detail beyond that. So I tied in that they Yellick and they clone her and they bring her back, and So I just love the stories. The other story is, whose idea was it to put the anti-magic zone around the ruins of Cantona, and you have all these war machines instead? It's a huge anti-magic area, and it's run by humanoids now that overrun. And if you don't know, it's okay.
I'm not sure. I know that Chris did do the stuff on the Earth Dragon, but if you kind of think of the Slavers book as 4 parts, I know that he had 1/4 and I had 3/4. So if we can figure out what the 1/4 that he did is, then we can say that I did the rest of it.
All right, awesome. It's just it's different. It's
an interesting take when you kind of reverse the mechanics and go whole hog on engineering and that type, rather than sticking to magic, which is it's forces the adventurers to go about it differently.
And then one last thing, the personalities in this book are fantastic. For example, in Wyvernon, you have this place run by a specialty priest of Hexter, who's just kill, he's going to kill all the humanoids and but he runs it with an iron fist, and he's got these evil gnomes that work with him. It's just, it's not the black and whiteness of good and evil. There's gray areas a lot in this book, and that's what I think is really, really cool about it. He's not a dwarf, Norker. I think he's a human. I think he's a short, squat human. You think he's a dwarf? I don't think he's a dwarf.
I think he was a human, but
yeah, I think the picture looks like but he's short.
I used him in my Lord Mistrine adventure and stuff that I did some 12 years ago, 20 years ago almost now.
And I know it's 2 decades ago, but I just wanted to really just say thank you for doing this book. I mean, it's just, I've used it so much.
It's a lot of fun. Yep.
Yeah.
And you saying Shades of Grey, Greyhawk is a Shades of Grey setting. Like, it's not very polarized between, here's this forces of good versus the forces of evil. I mean, that exists, but that's not the main axis of things. And if you look at stuff like the Circle of Eight, like, they're not trying to promote good or evil. They're literally, I mean, the tagline of the setting in that era was keeping the balance. Yeah. They're trying to keep things from getting too good, too evil, too lawful, too chaotic, because in their mind, that's where stagnation occurs. You kind of get this, just everything is good, everything is evil, or whatever, and you lose a lot of your freedom and your dynamic to have choices, both as a person living in the setting and also a GM who wants to build stuff for the setting.
It's a great
That
point.
was the best sold argument I've heard of the balance ever, so to speak, because I always frustrated it, but there is an upside to it too. So yeah. And it's kind of interesting, and it makes it tricky in new ways, so to speak. You're forced to, if you want to keep some of these themes in your campaign, you have to think outside the box a little bit, and it also gives you a lot of freedoms, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, Norker, you're correct. After all these years, he is a dwarf. Holy shit!
Oh, there you go.
Dwarf priest. I didn't even know that. I'm keeping him human.
Missed something.
Because it's too late now, so
yeah, we have to rewrite things.
Oh my gosh! So Anna, why don't you ask a couple of your questions of Sean here? Because I know you want to. We'll go back.
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of curious. But so when you get like an assignment, like writing like Slavers or some adventure or module that is set in an environment that has a lot of information, whether it's Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, or Dragonlance or something, meaning, how much do you get like the concise information presented to you, and that's what you're going through, or do you have to go and dig out, and what is that process of how much research, and when do you say enough is enough, let's write, so to speak, or
It really depends on the time period and the setting. And I mean like the Earth time period, because working on Greyhawk then, we had Roger Moore, who had been, he's basically a Greyhawk scholar.
Yeah, and you could just ask him and he told you. Yeah.
And he would just pull together he had put together a huge document for internal use of all these references, all these like minor things that have been said on America Online, and like snippets from adventures and things like that. So when, for example, with Slavers, it's just like, okay, we're going to do Adventure 7 Slavers. He's like, well, here's the original adventures, and here's other material that we talked about this. Oh, and here's the write-ups of the couple of gods that we mentioned. Oh, and there's this Earth Dragon, but this is like only 2 sentences that have ever been said about them.
Yeah.
And we had a design team meeting, and we just kind of kicked around some ideas about what we wanted the broad strokes of the book to be. And that got discussed, and then we got approval for it, and then we just kind of sat down and rolled with it. And at the time, Chris and I had adjoining cubes at Wizards of the Coast, and so we could always just step around our shelf wall to say, what do you think about this, or hey, I've got this idea that there are a bunch of drug addicts who are I don't know why I said it that way, drug addicts who are, in this city, and, the PCs can get involved in this and that. And so we're just, kicking ideas back and forth. That is one of the advantages of an in-person work environment where you're a creative person. You can just kind of kick ideas over. I mean, nowadays we do that over a Zoom meeting or a Slack channel,
but you have to write it down so, and if you could just impromptu, just lean over and kind of, okay, look at this. Yeah.
So that's like one end of how this design process works. But if you're talking about something like the Forgotten Realms, there are so many more products, so many more books and novels and, articles and just all these wild references. And it's hard to keep all that information together. and hard to know where to find all that information. And so you need somebody like Eric Scott DeBee, or even Ed Greenwood, if you can, to go and say, oh, you really want to read this. At the time, editor Julia Martin was also like a super lore, but she was basically the line editor for Forgotten Realms. And so when I'd say, I'm going to write this for the Forgotten Realms in this country, what sources should I read? And she would sometimes, tap Dale Donovan and say, well, ask Dale for this and that, but she would know you need to read this. And there's so much material there. And it's kind of funny because as the timeline advances, some parts of it get obsolete because, for example, if you're talking about Cormyr in 3rd edition, there's a major turnover in the royalty of Cormyr. And so a later book is not going to talk about the King of Cormyr anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to keep that in mind.
Lots of changes.
Actually, before I joined Monte Cook Games as a full-time person, I did a stint as a contractor at Wizards of the Coast, and I was hired to work on a database for the Forgotten Realms because they realize we have all this information, and if somebody comes to us and says we want to make a Forgotten Realms video game set in Cormyr, what do? Well, we tell them read these 30 books and these 20 novels, but ignore this chapter and this chapter and this chapter and this section and that. And what they wanted to do was make a database that was just like, here is all the up-to-date information on Cormyr, here's all the up-to-date information on Thay and so on. You could just create a PDF for that. And so I was actually, as a person who had written for the Realms for years, was responsible for sorting and cataloging that information so that it could be presented to someone who was not fully versed in all the information. So it really depends on how much lore there is. If you have a lore hero on the team who can give you information and give you answers on that sort of stuff.
Yeah, because now I've heard and since I encountered that when I do maps, especially when I did for Kobold Press, when for Midgard, that is a setting that I'm not that familiar with, and I had to kind of poke the writers on a constant basis. And and I've heard from several publishers now, and now we have started having really good digital tools to put together like a mass of interlinked information that you can search through and you can sift through. So I can realize that there are a lot of projects in various publishers that, especially the ones that have a rich setting with lore, to build this. And I guess it's more effective to hire someone to do it once instead of asking everyone whose work to do the same repetitive fact-finding missions, so to speak. But I think is this a growing problem as most of these IPs become older and older and richer in information? So do you see some publisher cutting the off and say, now we published enough in this setting, so we're going to invent a new one or something?
I don't know about cutting off and ending the setting, but I think that is the source of why a company might say, we're going to have some sort of disaster and advance the timeline by
like
significant,
a spell plague,
like the spell plague.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and that was actually pressure from the Wizards of the Coast fiction department, and they were like, we have all these authors and they're feeling kind of stagnated writing in this current time period. We would like to shake things up because that's what they like to do.
Yeah,
we're going to bump the time period 100 years forward, and so now all the novelists have all this free reign to go and mess around in this new point in the timeline, which if you have an ongoing D&D campaign set in the realms, that's kind of frustrating because you're like, do I wrap up my campaign? Do we put everybody in like cryo sleep for 100 years and then they wake up? Or and then you have things like Bob Salvatore's Drizzt Do'Urden books where two of the main characters he writes about are human, and so
they will be dead.
They'll be dead, right? So Bruno is still there, and Drizzt is still there. Like, we'll reincarnate them. They'll be the new incarnations of these heroes. So you have to come up with creative solutions to keep your fun stuff going.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Settings have all sorts of weird problems that I guess some other businesses don't have these issues, but it's kind of interesting. And we also have like so many, which I'm one of many, there's so many fans out there that know everything about the setting. So if you screw up one minutiae of detail, someone will tell you that forever, so to speak. So
And I think that's the same problem that the Marvel Cinematic Universe ran into, where people are like, well, that, according to X-Men 125, that never happened, or this happened differently, or this issue of Iron Man totally invalidates that. And they just said, you know what? The continuity we're making for the Marvel Cinematic Universe is its own continuity. It's not that, it's inspired by stuff in the comics, but we're going to have our own takes on things. And so you're like, The second X-Men movie, X-Men United, is strongly based on a classic X-Men story called God Loves, Man Kills. But it's significantly changed in the movie version. And I think the movie is great. And I love the original source material too. You just got to be willing to take that little leap of faith and say, it's not the thing that I remember from reading.
Yeah.
This is how the movie's going to do it. And I think people should just do that with their campaigns too.
We do it ourselves, meaning for each of us, when we start running a campaign in that setting, we are kind of making our own fork of the setting. So it's interesting that we do it ourselves habitually, not thinking about it. But if it's done in any publication, we get like so angry about it, which is kind of interesting if someone else is doing it. So yeah.
Hey, I had that issue with my campaign's 42 years old in Greyhawk, and I had that issue with From the Ashes. You know, I'm running around in the 90s. All of a sudden, what? You know, and it took me a long time to incorporate it in. But yeah, that's part of.
Yeah, but it took me 20 years to realize I don't have to follow that line right away. I can read it and have it, and then I can let it inspire, and I can let things evolve in my own home game in the pace that I feel comfortable with. But that took me 20 years to realize I could do it, because I was like, oh, I need to do this now because it's changed. And when they killed off Horn Society, I was so frustrated, and
that's your favorite.
And it was like, but now I realized that lemon. Then it became the interesting thing. Then that became an obstacle that was interesting to get over, so to speak. So now I actually turned what I disliked for over 10 years, turned it into something interesting, and now I'm using that as a creative springboard, so to speak, for my own ideas for my own games. So it's something bad turned out something good. So sometimes I think it's good to throw some left hooks to players and DMs too, when you and that's definitely another interesting thing. Are you afraid of going off the rails too much, or is it like to give players and DMs a bit to bite in, so to speak? Is that something meaning how much do you want to, I guess that is also part of the era, meaning now we live in an era where games should be more streamlined, but that was an era before. And then, like we talked about with Ghost Walk and others, that was an era where you could take out the envelope all over, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a writer, you want to be able to take things in new directions. And many times having a set limitation is a good way to kind of spark your imagination. Like if you're writing something in Dragonlance doesn't have orcs. Yeah. And so you can't use orcs as your generic villain. And so you have to come up with something different to fit that slot. And, you know, whether you're writing for Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk, you're going to have different things like, oh, we can't do this in Realms, we can't do this in Greyhawk because this god is really like, this adventure would be perfect for Greyhawk, but it's not suitable for Forgotten Realms. So what can we do to make this a Realms adventure by tweaking, you know, aspect A or aspect B? And sometimes that's taking a dwarven priest of Hextor and deciding that he's human.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't believe after all these years, I'm like, it says MD right there in small letters. Holy jeez.
You missed that.
That is crazy. Absolutely nuts. But it's always getting corrected, even by my wife and most of the community here for the most part.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So here's what I wanted to say thanks for. I got it up here real quick. I'll just make sure I don't hit a wrong button here. And that's, I ran this, and I think it was like 2 years ago almost, I ran this live. And it's just an introductory to the Slavers, and it was an RPGA adventure. I think it was run at Gen Con 2000, I think.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That was the time when they were doing little RPGA, not sponsored, but like written through the RPGA tie-in adventures to various core D&D books. And so we did one for Council of Worms. We did this one for Slavers. We did some for Birthright, that sort of thing. And again, because RPGA, they would publish these adventures, and Gen Con was a big place for the players to go. So yeah, it makes sense that it would be played at Gen Con.
So this adventure is the first time, I think, I could be wrong, that Malenti appear, and then they appear in Slavers. And they're the even further mutated Sahagwin that they want to kill, you know, immediately because and they have their own community. Is that your creation, Malenti?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not going to take credit for that. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years.
Right.
And so often people will send me a direct message. It's like, can you comment about, like, can you clarify this thing that you wrote in this paragraph? And I'm like, did I work on that book? And I check it. Like, I did work on that book. So, but yeah, it feels very core D&D to me. So that's either something that my brain inserted in there and just let it go out into the world, or is something that I read and went, oh, we're going to use this and move forward. I don't know.
It could be.
I try not to claim stuff that isn't mine for 100% sure.
It could be in the Sea Devils that Bruce wrote, a series that Bruce wrote at the same time. It's very possible, but it fits in real well. And I just noticed it's in here in the Slavers as well. Hey, the alternate Marquesas is a home run, Sean. I mean, my gosh, that's the grandiose of all grandiose things there. So
I got to say that the 2005 reboot of Battlestar Galactica, when they started having all the copies of these Cylons, I was just like, hey, that's my idea.
That's great. Absolutely. This camp comes along as well. The Scarlet Brother. What a fantastic book.
That is a great
Go ahead,
one.
Anna. I want you to ask, because you're a Monoland genius when it comes to this.
First of all, I must say this one is up in the top 3 or 4 if you include Evil the Undying, and you have Markland and I Use the Evil and Scarlet Brotherhood. It's kind of, to me, those are the Greyhawk products that for me are the most interesting. They go deep into the setting. They explain a whole region and several countries and a lot of aspects of it, so to speak, and they are fantastic. So what was I was saying first, this I think is also very interesting because it's the first real step outside of the core setting, so to speak. We go to the fringes of the map and dig into it, so to speak. And meaning first, what was your take on the Soul? Meaning, was Soul just a little concept that you had to read into, or was it something you were already interested in and invested in and thought about a lot? Or because that's kind of one of the core concept of the book, meaning the Soul as a people and a culture and stuff in Greyhawk for this book.
So there's a lot of old lore in Greyhawk, and even in the original published stuff for it, you've got all the stuff between the Sul and the Baklunish and all these countries that are settled by them, and all these settlements and wars and versus the Flan and that sort of thing. And you look at the Sul, and they are these fair-skinned, blonde-haired people who think that they are basically the master race of Greyhawk. They're Greyhawk Nazis. Like, if you look at their insignia in the original Greyhawk folio, it's like a rounded swastika. Like, it's very clear that these are meant to be a Nazi analog. And so with the idea of doing this book, it's like, all right, we got to embrace this, because their whole thing, like the whole thing of their country is, hey, the rest of the continent has been taken over by these inferior races, and we need to go and reclaim our heritage of owning all this stuff. And that just drove everything. And the whole book needed to be written from their perspective. And so it's all about their views on these inferior types of humans. And there's the little bits of lore from all these old sources, like the Hidden Shrine of Tomoa-chan, which is, kind of a Central American sort of themed adventure in Greyhawk. But if you look at some of the carvings and the paintings in that temple and the tomb, they show the people fighting some black-skinned humans. And it's like, who are those people? Like, we hadn't even seen them in Greyhawk stuff at all. And so Scarlet Brotherhood is like, well, they've, the Sul had started to settle down here and settle down there, and they ran into these people, and these people were also fighting. It's one of those things where, like, oh, we happen to be fighting a war against another nation, and then this other group of invaders comes in and makes life even harder for us. And so like, without that original war going on between the Tove and the quasi-Mayan people, like, the Scarlet Brotherhood would have had a much harder time colonizing them. But yeah, there was just that book. I had to kind of bleach my brain after writing it, just because they are just really, really vile people who are doing all these sorts of experiments and breeding on humans, and they're just not nice.
Exactly, it's a book that all about villainy in various forms, so to speak. Because the Tuve, I guess, are the nicest in the book, but the Sewell and the Almonds are terrible. Their culture have so many nests, but the Almonds are almost like victims of stuff more than, and the Sewells are really like villainous perpetrators of all sorts of heinous crimes and really terrible stuff. But on the other hand, meaning role-playing games are drama, so you need villains and a lot of bad stuff too, because that's what makes the stories and drive the interest, like movies or meaning if everybody's good and nice, that doesn't work. But it's from even I think in that sense it's much, the Scarlet Brotherhood is much deeper than I Use the Evil, for instance, that didn't dig that deep, and it's less mechanics. I Use the Evil and stuff had more mechanic feel and so on. This, it goes deeper into the culture, the lore, and stuff, which I kind of like, because the mechanics I can fill in myself here and there if need be, but to get inspiration on all the culture stuff was kind of really interesting. Meaning, did you have like full free hands? But meaning the Tuve had maybe been mentioned 5 times in Greyhawk lore before then, or barely that? Meaning, and the Allmen were just footnotes here and there. So did you have a lot of freedom to just invent all this stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was vetted by Roger Moore, and we had some other people who were Greyhawk experts outside the company who we wanted to share that stuff with. But much of it was just like, hey, this is unexplored territory. This is unexplored culture. We can just do what we want with this. And obviously, do what we want is not, hey, they all have tentacles for arms and they can fly. It's not silly, whimsical stuff. It's just like, let's make something cool, interesting, and setting appropriate. And I think one thing that I really liked about the Scarlet Brotherhood book is that although the focus is on the Sewell, and the Sewell are presented like, well, the people in that part of the world are presented as bad people. But if you look at the migrations of the Sewell from halfway over here in the West to, there are a lot of countries in between here and here where the Sewell people were. And so you can have a player character who is from a country that is a mix of Flan and Sewell, or Flan and something else, Sewell and something else. And so if you're doing a campaign where the Scarlet Brotherhood are the major villains, like the people who are playing those characters have the opportunity to go, all right, it's not that the Sewell are bad inherently, because my character is not inherently a bad person, but this culture of domination and enslavement and magical interbreeding and that sort of thing, like that is abhorrent. And so like, I don't want you to think I'm part of that just because I look like them, which is an interesting story element.
Yeah.
So, Sean, I got a little, it's a funny little story question from Last Seeker of Oblivion. And he says, ask Sean the inspiration for the name of the spell Devious Stairs.
So there is a song, and I think the band's name is Marcy Playground, but the song is I Smell Sex and Candy. And it's like, who's that giving me devious stares? And like the lyric is just literally right out of that. I'm like, oh, devious stare sounds like an interesting idea for a spell. And so I ended up creating this spell that makes you just target somebody and they think that everybody is like staring at them, and they start getting all paranoid because everyone is focusing their attention, but it's just all an illusion in their head.
Okay. Oh, thanks for putting that one up. That's awesome. Very cool. So another a great publication, 100% there, definitely. And I know that was the basis for the Modelland expansion, right? That Anna, went all the way down to the bottom of the continent, because we only had half the continent before then, and things to come like Isle of Dread being retconned, and all. Once we had Savage Tide, and things just kept on rolling in that area. And that was the first, but definitely the slavers and that are just both fantastic. I want to ask real quick about your adventure in TSR Jam 1999, Blood Feud, which is based on the Ithiliad, which is a
Ilithiad, which is supposed to be like the Iliad.
I just said Ithiliad. Okay, yeah, but it's on the Underdark version. Yeah, it's generically placed, which is cool. So the question is, you always been a fan of like the D series, and you take inspiration from this or Night Below, or where did that your inspiration for that adventure come from, if you remember?
Yeah, I'm old enough that I had the original Greyhawk, or the original Giants Adventures and the Drow Adventures, and so being able to do something underground was like, I was like, oh, I can flex some little underground wings for my riding chops. Nice. But yeah, that's a tie into the Illithid books that I believe that Bruce wrote. And the idea of there is an enclave of mind flayers, and the PCs are nearby, and there's a bunch of, I think it's Githzerai, right? The Githzerai show up and they're like, hey, there's some mind flayers here. Let's team up and kill them. And the PCs are like, well, we can't take mind flayers on our own, but if these guys hate mind flayers too, let's do that.
Yeah,
fun little one-off.
You got multiple factions coming in here, which is cool. Yeah.
Right, all the factions. Yeah, so I think Bruce introduced those in the Ilithiad, and so I just kind of, the part of the purpose of those little RPGA Adventurers Guild adventures was to give people a taste of what was in the full book. And so if you hadn't picked up the Ilithiad, or you didn't even know about it, your game store might have this adventure, and you'd be like, oh, I've got a GM who's going to run this D&D adventure. It's featuring mind flayers. Wow, there's a lot of cool stuff in here about mind flayers that I didn't know. And the answer is, well, if you want even more like that, check out Bruce's book about mind flayers.
Yeah, and this book was fantastic because you have the very next adventure is Chris Perkins doing a Planescape adventure. And then you have John Mangrum doing a Ravenloft adventure. So you got a whole huge mix. If you can find this, I don't know if this is available on drive-through. This is an original.
I'll check and see.
But if you can find it, this is worth getting, everyone. I imagine that they're probably fairly reasonable. Reason why I mean $70, $80 on eBay. I don't know if that's reasonable anymore. Who knows? But I don't know if that one's available on drive-through RPG. Only PDF on drive-through? Well, it's worth it. I mean, it really is worth it.
Hang on a second. Finding it here. Yeah, it's available as a PDF for $4.95 at drive-through RPG.
There you go. Perfect. Yep. Perfect for everyone to get a hold of that one.
I'll post the link in chat here so people can buy it if they want.
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Chuck Cumbo, Troller Game, said he's not doing. He's kind of been ill. He got COVID again. He's been not doing well. So yeah. So
some people are overachievers. They're
he's
good to have it. Yeah. Remember John Bertfield, he said he got it the second time. I said, you're always an overachiever. You had to have it more than once. Yep.
Yeah, he just verified the gift codes I was giving out tonight. So I mean, not the codes, but that he's going to be giving the codes. My apologies there. So the two eras winding down here in this discussion, and how excited were you for the Living Greyhawk 3rd edition era and this, which has your name right on this with some name, Gary Hooley and Eric Mona, yourself and Frederick Whining right on that cover.
We were really excited to work on that. I had already kind of established myself as the Gods guy. I had been writing Greyhawk Gods articles for Dragon Magazine for a little while. And so when they announced that when internally we decided to do the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, it was just obvious that, like, Sean, there's 32 pages. We need to cover all these gods. Most of these gods have had maybe a line or two. Some gods only literally had like a name and an alignment and a portfolio in a table.
Yeah.
And so there was the opportunity to go, cool, I can just write all this wild stuff for those. And at the time we had, I had also been reading some of the Forgotten Realms stuff, and Forgotten Realms and D&D 2nd edition was very big on having specialty priests of each deity. And we didn't really have that for Greyhawk. And so it's like, oh, well, I'll make like a miniature version of these specialty priests for each of these gods. And they ended up having to cut that because it's just like, well, like especially priest write-up is supposed to be like yay long, and you're kind of doing this super condensed version, and it works, but we didn't really approve this format, and we're not really sure if the power levels of this format that you're doing are
that's a
correct.
First. We never heard that before.
But you were also writing it just before the third edition was supposed to come out, and so the rules weren't written, so to speak. Was that part of the fact that you didn't put any crunch or no rules in it or something like that?
Yeah,
no mechanics.
Yeah, and part of it is because third edition Greyhawk was supposed to be D&D core. Like that book was not supposed to have new rules material. It wasn't supposed to have any new magic items, any new spells. It was literally like, if I'm a player and I have the player's handbook and I have this book, that's what I need right there. And you didn't want to have a situation where someone who didn't have the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer would have fewer spells and magic items and other options. And that was the directive from like the brand managers. That wasn't the creative team. So I had to end up writing up these things just as paragraph of description, paragraph in character of like the god's doctrine, talking a bit about their priests, mentioning what domains they had, what alignment they had. And that was it. But like somewhere, I'm sure I have notes that say, oh, if you are a priest of Hieronius, at level 4, you get this bonus spell once per day. And then at level 8, you get this spell once per day, et cetera, et cetera. Like I did that for all 80 some odd gods set up here in that book, but we took it out.
So Big Mac just asked the question, do you still have those?
I might.
That would be so cool. Yeah,
I suffered a really bad computer crash in like 2005 and I lost a lot of stuff, but I might still have that somewhere.
Well, okay. Wow. So there you go.
That will be
why are you standing in a pentagram that I cannot approach? What? That is Gary Julian. So this is just, this is when someone new to the community comes in, they ask, where do I go first? And so, and what's available. So like through drive-through, I only think Roger Moore's 2.5 book is the one that's available. I don't think can you get this yet? I don't think,
yes. Oh, yeah.
You can get this one now? Okay.
Oh, yeah. You could before because I bought it myself.
This is the one we tell them to
double-check again because they've actually, there are things that have been removed from it. So I'm going to double-check again.
Yeah. So it's not in print. You can't get it in print. Okay. But you can get it in PDF. So it's just a fantastic synopsis. So you're responsible for the deities in this. That's your, okay. All right.
And Fred, Gary, and Eric, they all called dibs on various aspects of different countries and that sort of thing. So they fought over that. I let them do that because I was just like, guys, I've got 32 pages. I'm going to use all of that for the gods. You will figure out what stuff in the world you're going to write about.
Yep.
Any nostalgia when you did that from Len Sewell gods? Like thinking, wow, Len just did these and no Aquaman in here.
Exactly. No Aquaman. Aquaman. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because we had Len on talking about that all the time. Just wonderful. Yeah. Really cool. So I'm assuming during this era you are swamped, right? I mean, you got so much going on, but yet you find the time to, and we don't talk about this enough, and this is Living Greyhawk Journal 0. So if we come through here, I know I found this little blip, and it says right here, oh, and there's campaign news, Living Greyhawk, taking an old world in new directions. Dragon Scales at Morning Tide by Sean K. Reynolds. Strained black currents and droves of beach fish are being linked to a strange new cult in the city of Greyhawk. Are the cultists responsible? So there you go. Let me just, I think I have this here. Let me throw this up here. I just got the, so there you go. Dragon Scales at Morning Tide, a one-round Living D&D Greyhawk adventure. Was that your first writing for Living Greyhawk and Adventures? Or
yes. The time is very blurry. I mean, like as you said, I was swamped, and at the time, I was my sister and I were living in an apartment, and she made this joke because for 2 years, I literally, you'd ask me, how's it going? And I said, oh, it's going pretty good. In 2 weeks, I'll be caught up. And I said that for 2 years.
Wow.
Oh God. Yep.
Now, it wasn't that after 2 years I was caught up. It's just I stopped saying that.
Oh, dear.
But yeah, she would just joke like, hey, got 2 more weeks, Sean? You almost caught up? And like, shut up.
So yeah, that nice, nice first adventure here. 3rd level characters. I'm sorry, it's level 1 to 4. Yeah, but right in you got Shacktown discussed in here, so you got some really neat things, coming into the core series of adventures. And I just noticed that in Living Greyhawk Journal 0, that was the mention for you. But then when we go to the next one, we get into some, and this is Living Greyhawk Journal 1. Then we get into, can you pronounce that for me? Is it Enchiridion?
I think it's Enchiridion.
Enchiridion, okay. The Enchiridion of the Fiend Sage, the first in a series of articles revisiting some old monster friends in the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Plus meet a Noskeri, Scourge of the Northern Forest. I think you had some fun with these.
Yeah, the idea for that was we would take a couple of older D&D monsters that had not been updated in 2nd edition or 3rd edition and present them in 3rd edition format and do a couple of new creatures as well. So that's where we got things like the Norker up in 3rd edition, and then a couple of just weird-ass new things, often just based on art that I think it was Sam Wood who was doing the concept art for those too. So it'd just be like, Sam, do a couple of weird monsters, and like, okay, I'll make stats based on that.
Yep, you got the Greyhawk Dragon in this one right off the bat, which is cool. This thing, wow. I've never, until I went in here, never seen this before. Noskeri. The Flan legends say these leg bones of the Noskeri, if carved in heat and fire, become spears as hard as metal. Just, man, I mean, they're all throughout these, Sean. All these just new. I just completely new to the setting. Alignment always neutral evil. So I'm glad to see it. Like I said, it looks like you had a blast writing all this up. And you got Sons of Kias in here, and we're going to see them come back in Age of Worms, right? We're going to see a whole bunch of stuff coming up during this era. How long, as this goes on, were you here to the end? Were you here till the end of the Paizohawk era, like Eric was?
I left Wizards in 2003.
Okay,
and I think Paizo started in 2006.
Okay,
so there's a bit of blurriness in between.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Zwarts. Yeah. So you got some really neat things in here. I want to ask. All right, Anne, here it goes. This Living Greyhawk Journal 3. This is by you, Eric, and Fred Wining. Were you a fan of that movie? Is that why you named it The Blood of Heroes? Don't know. Okay. The movie with Joan Chen and no. Okay.
I don't even know that.
Joan Chen and Rutger Hauer. Yes. The Blood of Heroes. Okay. So this was
Eric named that.
Okay. So it was Eric's a fan of the show. Great. It needed more hero deities. So any remembrances on this? Thoughts on doing some of these?
Yeah, so like the Enchiridion, the idea was we would have, a few of these each issue, and some would be ones that had been covered before, like Merlin and Keotum and that sort of thing, and then others would be people that were brand new. Eric had this idea for one that was this weird deity, I think it was a Flan deity, who had been like impaled with his own spear for some reason, and he was just kind of carrying that around as a curse. I did this really cool dwarf hero god who was like doing vengeance on something, and I just still remember this one bit where, like, in response to something really bad happening to his tribe, he says, "I swear that I will save no coin and take no wife until my vengeance is fulfilled."
Nice.
And so he just spent the rest of his life and became a hero god just to keep on doing that.
This is almost lost information, right? If you don't know about these Living Greyhawk journals, you're not ever going to see this. And I'm
going to check and see if
and
they are available.
That's it, because you have Darren in here, you have Daoud in here, all names that you may know from a magic item, but now they're written up with stats for like the first time or backgrounds.
I don't even have copies of those.
Oh, really?
The Living Greyhawk journals are also available on DriveThru RPG
Oh, great.
as PDFs
Fantastic.
for $2 each.
That's
Yep.
great. That's great.
Yep.
So you can get them all on there. I mean, it's just,
Yep.
here it is. The Doom Dwarf, Gendwar Argrim, lawful neutral hero god of fatalism and obsession. That sounds like it, Sean. Awesome. Wow. Great. Glenwar's Clerk, Scout, and Evil Human.
And I love the art from that time period too. It's just like, it's this nice kind of like bold lines, or just kind of watercolor sort of Rebecca Guay sort of look to it. I don't know if she did any of those, but it's definitely akin to her style.
Yeah, the production values of D&D and role-playing games in general exploded at that time.
Michael
Maybe
Dubish
it had something to do with that desktop publishing and stuff really came in of age. So you could put a lot of graphics and stuff like that in and produce it and on a smaller budget, so to speak, that you could before. And printing technology and stuff improved too, I guess. So color printing and stuff kind of maybe reached the threshold there.
Yeah, but it just... There was so much going on during this era from all the regions, and I'm not saying it's all wonderful, right? There's some crazy stuff, but there's some fantastic stuff.
Yeah, the D20 era was a little bit like monkeys with typewriters, a bit like the 5e era are as well. So I see a lot of similarities. Meaning a lot of the best stuff ever written is done now, and it was the same way back then. But it was also a lot of stuff written, which meant that it was a lot of stuff that even if it's not bad, there's a lot of stuff that whatever you like or dislike, there is a lot of stuff anyone would not like, so to speak. So you have to kind of find the pieces that you really like, and that becomes an art form or a little bit of a hassle. So in that sense, I guess we're very similar times right now.
Yeah, and this is a must. If you like Kellan and Merlin, which they make appearances in the Slavers, right, back a couple years before, like this stuff is must for your campaign, just to have it, just to give your players some other options for, like, wow, I may want to revere this person instead of this hero deity instead of I don't know, Palor.
Yeah, the Living Greyhawk. Yeah, the Living Greyhawk journals also have a lot of campaign and setting tidbits in. Meaning, just mentioned the Keoland article is fantastic. So.
So Sean, a little thank you here. Big Mac linked, and he said, please thank him for releasing the new Argonauts and all those other products for free on DriveThru. So Mac linked that in chat for everyone to take a look at. So he just wants.
Yeah, I think everything that I've actually written and self-published that's on DriveThru is just free now. So go get those free PDFs. Like I see bundles for like Humble Bundle and stuff, and they say it's $200 worth of game product for $1. Like I should probably. I retweet my own tweet saying, hey, all this free stuff is right here. I should probably add it all up and say, like, this is $100 worth of free PDFs. Go get them.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
It's a bit like the joke that if you put out a sofa outside and it's not gone, said $1,000 on it, it's gone in 5 minutes kind of thing. So, yeah.
So you did at this time as well. You're doing these, right? These are 3rd edition as well, right? So you're doing along with all the Living Greyhawk, Gary, you're doing these Forgotten Realms books. So you were, as you said, overly busy all this time.
In 2 weeks, they'll be caught up. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And when 2003 came along, and it's like burnout? What happened at that time?
So we had come out with the 3rd edition Forgotten Realms setting, and we had done a series of Forgotten Realms books, and we had gotten to the point, well, Hasbro had bought Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro's business model meant that come December, to make things look good for the shareholders, you cut costs. And Hasbro is an East Coast company, and so they have a lot of property, like we own this office or we own this factory, blah, 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 blah. Wizards of the Coast is West Coast, and they rented their building. They didn't have any like assets like that. The only assets they had were employees. And so that cost-cutting measure meant, oh, it's December, we're going to lay some people off. Or, sometimes it might be delayed until March. And we had like one round of layoffs and then another year later. And we had kind of heard that there's a rumor of more coming up. And I actually had been sought out by Fergus Urquhart, who was one of the creative directors / brand managers at Interplay. who had done, Fallout and the Baldur's Gate series and Icewind Dale and that sort of thing. And he reached out to me and said, we need a person on our design team who knows 3rd edition D&D, because the script writers and the programmers have rules questions, and they have to keep going to Josh Sawyer, who has gone on and done tons of amazing video games for Obsidian. But they kept going to him, and he's like, I'm trying to work on the story. Can we get someone to handle the rules questions? And so they brought me on to be a designer for a Forgotten Realms video game. But they had kind of like a vague idea of when I was going to be starting. And so we'd heard rumors at Wizards of the Coast there was going to be another set of layoffs. I went to Bill Slavisek, who was the head of RPG R&D, and said, hey, there's going to be another round of layoffs. I've got this Interplay job lined up. And so if you need to lay off somebody, lay off me, because that way you'll save somebody else's job, because I've got this other job. And March 15th, March 15th is the Ides of March. That's Julius Caesar. That particular year, this was March 14th, perhaps because they didn't want us to be on March 15th. But they let go 4 people, and I was one of those. And I was totally fine with it, because, as I said, I told them I'm going to be doing this other job. And so I left Wizards of the Coast. I moved back to Southern California, and I started working for Interplay on video games. And that lasted for 1.5 years until Interplay imploded for various reasons. And then I started working at Paizo.
Yeah. So you were back. So you came back to Paizo during the Paizo Hawk era, or during? Yeah, I'm assuming it was during that time frame where they still had Greyhawk before they went all Pathfinder.
It was after they had started. Just trying to think of the exact timeline. Like, they had not published, they were about to publish the Pathfinder beta for 1st edition.
But they still had the contract with Wizards of the Coast to publish Dungeon and Dragon magazine.
Yes, although I think that was tapering off, because I had already been doing some freelance, again, doing god write-ups for the Golarian gods for the Pathfinder AP. So there's, again, a little bit of a blending time. And I think it was right around the end of right around when 4th edition was about to come out, and they were making the decision whether to stay with 3rd or go with 4th. So yeah, I came on, and we were no longer doing 3rd, and we were looking forward to be publishing Pathfinder as its own game.
Yeah.
And that took you, talking about gods, this era of your core beliefs articles, and there's a bunch of them here that you can reference and find in Dragons. So did you kind of throw a little bit of your, oh my gosh, my specialty priests, and mix in some of the things you did from that didn't make Living Greyhawk into here a little?
Yeah,
that's what I'm assuming.
Reused here.
There's a lot here. Baka, Baladamara, Ouija, or Ouija, as Len says, St. Cuthbert, nice. All the way through to, I think, almost to the last dragon that Paizo had, very close to it, if not the last one. 358, is 358 the last one? I always lose track.
I think so, 350 something, yeah.
So really nice Greyhawk content here. And I know some of the people really, we have a great series. Yeah, Gary Holing just said great series of articles. I know Dale, a lot of the Living Greyhawk people really looked at these. And I'm assuming this was the last tidbit of Greyhawk content that you worked on before the switch over to Golarion in its entirety. Yeah. Any memories of these last years or two going in? And another question's come up multiple times. What are you most proud about from Greyhawk that you did, Greyhawk content wise?
I mean, so answering that first question, I don't want to forget the second question.
No problem.
But yeah, it was weird, because I was kind of tapering off what sort of Greyhawk stuff that I was doing, because they were stopping production of that. Like Eric, who was obviously a big Greyhawk fan, and he wanted more content like that, but with the anticipation of the startup of Pathfinder and such, they weren't going to be doing any more Greyhawk stuff, and so those things kind of tapered off. And my life got kind of really crazy at that point, because I was commuting 2 hours each way to work. So I had a lot of time on a train to do writing stuff. And so I actually ended up doing a lot of freelance writing, published through Monty's company at the time, Malhavoc Press, which is why you've got Bonds of Magic and things like that from there. But juggling the last bits of my Wizards freelance, and then with slowly working towards doing Paizo freelance for Pathfinder, that sort of thing. In terms of just like what my favorites would be, like, although it's a horrible, wicked place, I very much enjoyed doing the Scarlet Brotherhood book, just because it was a big all me source book. It was just, I could write my own sections and I didn't have to split it off with anybody else. I'm also a big fan of Against the Giants, The Liberation of Jeff, which again was another example of, let's take this adventure content, which has kind of like a little bit of setting material, and add even more setting material to it. And especially as The Liberation of Jeff literally has the original G1, 2, and 3 adventures in it, updated to 3rd edition.
I completely forgot about The Liberation of Jeff. That was just, and you added a lot of content went into that. A lot of extra connecting the dots went into that Liberation of Jeff. Some wonderful things with that. So Anna, I know you have some more.
Yeah, we talked about so many projects and stuff, and I was thinking, is it preferable? Do you want to work on a project from start to finish, or do you like to juggle a little bit between or get bored with one project? Because for me, it's like, if I sit and work on one thing after 2 weeks, I was like, no, I need to do something else for another day or a few hours or something like that. Or do you feel like you want to be immersed in one project from start to finish and not think about other things? So how much do you like go in and because it's different when you sit and stare at an image and sit and doodle in something or writing. Yeah, because I write my blog post, but that's kind of a necessary evil rather than the essentials. So how is it for a writer to juggle things?
I think for the most part, I like to work on something from start to finish and not have other writing projects come up in the middle. Sometimes scheduling means that can't happen. Like I might have to pause writing this and develop somebody else's manuscript or work on some freelance, that sort of thing. But I think in the past 3 or 4 years or so, I have broadened what I do just for fun. To like, I'm doing handyman stuff and carpentry stuff, and I'm restoring an old car. And so when I get kind of like done with writing something for, I'm like, hey, you know what, I'm going to just take a light day and I'm going to go put some Bondo on my car, or I'm going to, I'm going to build a new coat rack for the living room because the current one doesn't have enough hooks and that sort of thing. So that lets me feed I want to change up what my mental energy is doing, or even like it's something that I don't even necessarily need my brain for. I just got to get my hands busy, let my mind wander, think on shows and stuff that I've read, and I come back to the computer and I have a rebuilt and refilled well of inspiration.
Yeah, that answers awesome. The other question I have, meaning how do you get inspiration long term? Yeah, for me, it's also that to go out and do something else, and that's one of the benefits of this job, is that you have to work any 60 hours you feel like, but you can do the many hours you feel like. You don't have to do it certain hours. So go out and hike a couple hours or something like that. That is usually the way to go, to get away from the computer and the desk, so to speak, for a few hours.
So. Getting some questions from the audience. So, Anna, do you have another one? Because I'm going to compile.
Yeah, I have
some
one.
Of these,
one I was thinking when we talk about rule systems and game styles and stuff, we talk about old school and new school and stuff. And I was thinking, as a professional working in the field here, meaning how much have you changed your approach, your tools, and so on through your career? Meaning, do you write using Word? You sit and write and have one piece of software sitting on your laptop like you did 20-25 years ago, or do you use a different set of tools, a different approach and stuff like that? How have your the technical side of the job of writing stuff like this evolved over time, so to speak? Is it drastically different? My job doing maps and stuff is drastically different, with the whole complete different set of tools now compared to 10-15 years ago.
So yeah, it has changed a bit, because when I first started writing this stuff, I was working on like one of the few Macintosh computers at TSR. It was like me, because I was kind of like technically part of the advertising department when I was the web guy. And so we had all these Macs, and then the people who did all the layout and stuff had Macs, but most of the rest of TSR had old, literally DOS IBM PCs working in text. Like they didn't even have, mice, that sort of thing. And so I was writing stuff in it wasn't Microsoft Word because I remember fighting Word a lot, but it was some program from that era. And then my first, when I wrote the Star Cairns, I turned over my manuscript of the Star Cairns to editor Michelle Carter, and it was a text file. Literally, I just wrote it in the Mac version of Notepad, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she came back to me and said, "Don't ever do this again," because it didn't have any formatting. It didn't have bold. It didn't have italics for all the magic items. It didn't have like the headers marked or anything. So it was like, so I learned how to use Word, and I have banged my head hard enough against the Word interface to get it how I want it. I've got lots of macros built in to do the stuff that I like. I know that a lot of people that I collaborate with at MCG, like some of them prefer Scrivener because Scrivener is really good particularly for writing fiction, and a lot of them are novel writers. And so we're always having to do like save as, and sometimes it's a shared document, so it's Google Docs and that sort of thing. But for the most part, I'm still working in a very heavily customized Microsoft Word. And I use tables for a lot for magic items and percentages and stuff. So I've actually written some spreadsheets that I can just say, hey, here's 35 magic items, and I'm just going to say this has 4%, this has 3%, this has 1%, and it'll go and make the number ranges for me. It'll say, hey, this only adds up to 92%. You're missing some numbers. So I'll go back and fill in some numbers, but it'll do the hard of 01 to 04, 05 to 07. It does that for me because I hate having to fix that. So I try and use the tools that I have, but I also don't want to like become too reliant on certain tools because it's just going to change in the next upgrade.
Exactly. They will disappear. So,
So, wow, that's text. I can't even imagine. How do you edit that?
You glare at Sean, and then you go back and you paste all 20,000 words into Microsoft Word, and then you start boldfacing and italicizing everything.
Oh, wow.
Because I remember, oh gosh, I don't even remember the Quattro Pro. What was the word? Was it Word Pro or something? I was like,
they had Word Perfect.
Word Perfect. I was like,
there've been several others.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
And I guess there still are.
Word Perfect. Jeez. Yeah. Back in the day, and you're like, no replace. Oh man. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Just wow. And it's now that it's 2022, and we look back at the stuff. It's like, man, just how things took so long back then, and now it's with the Snap, and you're video conferencing on Zoom or on Teams, and things are just 100 times quicker. But I don't know if that's necessarily better. But content, there's so many other companies out, and I know we haven't asked much, and I know there'll be people asking about Greyhawk content, but. Monty Cook Games, great company. I mean, you guys are bringing out a lot of things. Like, so how about some highlights of what's going on at Monty Cook currently, or in the last couple of years, just to let everyone know that hey, you guys are here and you're really putting out some wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
So our main line is the Numenera game, which is weird science fantasy. It's Earth 1 billion years in the future. If you like Expedition to the Barrier Peaks with weird technology that adventurers are seeing as magic.
Oh, Gary's gonna.
That's basically Numenera. Like you're like, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but if I press this button, it makes a fire shoot out. So I'm going to use it as a fire wand, and that's using our Cipher system, which is a very rules light system. Having worked on 3rd edition D&D a lot and Pathfinder a lot, which are very nuts and bolts and crunchy sort of game systems, I very much like taking a step back that is a bit more loosey-goosiness. So if you like more old school rules, give Cipher a try. This past couple of months, I've been designing creatures for the Old Gods of Appalachia book that we're putting out, which is based on this very great, spooky, alternative Appalachia podcast that's been going on for a few years. And we got a book called The Weird coming out, which is all about bringing new twists to your game, whether that's fantasy, sci-fi, superheroes, whatever. It's just like, you know what? This village is really boring. Give me some inspiration for why this village is interesting that the PCs want. Like, oh, everybody here worships this one statue of a troll. Why? Because they used to, there was a troll adventurer here. Who knows? It's just coming up with interesting prompts for your home game, your character, your magic item, whatever. And then we've got another crowdfunding project coming up that we have not set a date for, but we have leaked some cover images, and it's, I mean, I like work at MCG. I get to work from home. I set my own schedule. I get to work on some really amazing books. 2 years ago, I did a source book called Stay Alive, which is a 224-page book about horror. Worked with Bruce and Monty on a similar sized book called Playing the Sky, which is all about superheroes. And they're just great people, and we have very similar values, and they're just, I get paid well, and I've got vacation time and healthcare, and like, it's just great. So I'm very happy with that. And I get to work on some really, really fun stuff. Like, I would not have had the opportunity to work on Old Gods of Appalachia, which is creepy as hell. So I'm very thankful for that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I remember that every time I've been up nominated for Ennies 3 times, and every time there's been some awesome map from Numenera that has stolen the phrase. So I'm very much in awe of the awesome cartography and stuff. So it's a lot of fantastic production values and stuff in Numenera, and yeah.
Well, I apologize for that.
No, don't. It's great. It's been fantastic. So it was just bad timing from Kobold Press that they and others that they published the same year that was some cool stuff coming out from Numenera with a big map in it too. So yeah. So yeah. So that's kind of awesome. So yeah.
So I'm assuming, since we didn't even discuss these, did you freelance these back in the day? Because this is pre-month. Oh my gosh, it's small. The Bonds of Magic, and I think I've 1 and 2. Just going back here, and this is
Is that Necromancy games?
This is Sword and Sorcery. This is
is
that era where it's like a subsidiary of Necromancer, right?
So I wrote those for Monty and Monty's company, Malhavoc Press.
Yeah.
And at the time, he had a deal with Sword and Sorcery where they would handle the print product. They would print it, they would warehouse it, they would distribute it. So it's a Monty Cook product written by me, print available through Sword and Sorcery.
Okay, there we go.
And yes, I was technically freelancing those because Monty, their only employees were him and Sue, his wife Sue at the time. So I left Wizards of the Coast, and he just called me up and he's like, "Hey, if you want to write anything for 3rd edition or whatever, just let me know and I'll publish it."
Nice.
So I wrote those 2 books of NPCs. I wrote a book about traditional angels called Anger of Angels. So if you want to have stats for cherubim and seraphim in your 3rd edition game, and you want to go to literally the heaven described in the Bible and Apocrypha and that sort of thing, and the kind of classic Dante's layer of hell with all these weird sort of groves of the suicide trees and stuff like that, like that's another weird book I did, because Monty was just like, literally, whatever you want to write, Sean, I will publish it.
Oh, that is awesome to get like a carte blanche like that, and a free slate that you can just dig into.
I'm sorry if I missed this, Sean. Did you write Iron Heroes?
No, that was not me. I did do a development pass on it, so I do have a credit in that.
Yeah, because that's a good hardback book from that same era, from that publishing. It was like that was like the free for all era, where just things are coming out everywhere with a D20 label on it or whatever. And it's like wow, so much information at that time. I know some of the people out there love the Necromancer Games stuff, and I always back converted it to. I'm still playing 1E, 2E, but there's just some wonderful content that come out. So I'm assuming that that time it lasted a year or 2, and then off to Paizo, and then a run. I mean, and I knew it would be too much to go through today. So,
it's
I just
kind of...
I'll spare you that going through all that. But some questions from the audience. This one's a little obscure. Big Mac asks, Sean, we know Sean released your own map of Ghostwalk when WotC forgot to release the official one.
Oh, I missed that one, I think.
Please ask, have you made other maps?
I would like more information about what they mean by that.
Yeah.
Do they mean specifically for Ghostwalk? I mean, I do maps. I've taught classes at PaizoCon on how to do better map turnovers if you are a freelancer, because I've had some absolute garbage map turnovers. I can draw a little bit, so
fantastic.
Yeah. But I'm obviously not like a professional like Anna here, but I can do something well enough either by hand or in Photoshop that it's like, okay, in a pinch, lacking a professional cartographer for this book that's going to only be used at Gen Con, yes, we can use Sean's map.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely some good ones, and that's one of the seminar that was a great seminar. So a lot of people that do map orders and stuff and art orders for maps should definitely go and listen to those seminars, because it's kind of tricky. But that's one of the fields we talked about in the fantasy mapping show a lot. But one of the reasons that you get hired as a cartographer is that a lot of writers and stuff don't think geographically and visually. That's why they hire someone who's overthinking things in that direction, so to speak. So in a sense, that gives me a job that to do because of it. So it has both sides. So yeah, you can't complain when it gives you a chance to earn money. So yeah.
And for several years, I ran Paizo's RPG Superstar contest, which is kind of like American Idol for RPGs. Yeah. You start off, you submit a magic item. If you get to round 2, it's a monster, an NPC, and finally the last one is you're going to write a 2,000-word pitch for an adventure. And if that wins, if people vote on it and it wins, you get to write that adventure. You get paid for that adventure. Paizo publishes that adventure. And part of that is we needed to teach people how to do a decent map turnover as part of their pitch.
One of the assignments,
Right. And so there's actually a Paizo blog written by me saying, here's an example of an F quality map, a D quality, C quality, B, and A quality, for not for publishing, but for turning over as part of your manuscript, so that a professional cartographer can go, I know what you want me to do when I make this professional map.
Yep. And it's kind of, but I also have to say that some of the people that I work with are so damn good cartographers that some of the kind of just the little thing that I'm supposed to look at looks so damn good that it looks better than some of the other published stuff, and so that is, but that is in a way good, because that forces me to go even beyond what you thought be at the start, so to speak. But it's great, and that was grueling. I had several of my friends that I've talked to and worked on various parties that went through the RPG Superstar, and that was grueling. So if you came out top 10 there, you were really good at a lot of stuff, so to speak, because that was really, you dug into basically almost all aspects of RPG creation, from items to plots and maps and everything. So that was fantastic. It went on for like 10 years almost or something, or it was at least a lot of years.
So Owen Stevens took over after I left Paizo. And so they did it for another few years. And I think then Paizo finally decided that it wasn't quite fitting what they wanted to be doing with their adventures line, so they stopped it. But at least, I want to say at least 8 years that they were running RPG Superstar.
Wow.
Yep. And it was super interesting, and it was kind of cool as an event that went on for quite some time, and there were blog posts about it and stuff. So that would have, in this day and age, would have been awesome to get a lot of it streamed and stuff and so on, because it was a little bit before the streaming and stuff was not a thing back 10 years ago. So as it is today. So maybe someone could pick up the mantle and do something similar again in this day and age, or have something.
Mac found it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we can trust David. He's a guru.
This community is pretty awesome when it comes to finding. I mean, my gosh. So there you go.
Wow.
And that happened because Ghostwalk got buried for a while. Like Monty left Wizards of the Coast, but he was still going to be working on Ghostwalk. And then we did Ghostwalk, and we wrote all of Ghostwalk. And then they're like, you know what? We're not going to publish this. And Monty and I were like, wait, why aren't you? We spent 8 months writing this, and they're like, we're just not going to publish it. And then Monty's like, well, I have my own publishing company. Can I license the rights to publish that? And they're like, And then Chris Pramis of Green Ronin is like, you have a book by Monty and Sean, and you're not publishing it. Please, can we license that to publish it? And they're like, We'll salvage bits. We'll use the magic items, put them in this book. We use the spells in this book. And people are just like, why don't you just publish the book? And so they said, well, okay, we'll publish the book. But it literally came out just a couple of months before 3.5.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. Like I was doing other things. I wasn't at the company. And so it just kind of like flew under everybody's radar. It wasn't shown to me. And the fact that the map was never commissioned was something that I would have noticed.
Well, here it is, everyone. So, and the link is there. Thank you so very much, Mac, for linking that. So we have that up, which is cool.
And I want to say, I'm not knocking Wizards of the Coast for this. It was a weird time in the industry, and most of the people who were involved in this aren't even at the company anymore. So, like, I've got friends at Wizards. It's totally fine. It's just a quirk of being the year 2004 during the RPG industry.
Yeah.
This is tame compared, Sean, compared to some of the stuff some of the other guests have said on the show. So, I mean, my gosh, yeah, it's understandable. There's so much transition going on. Just, in that era, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But hey, that's cool. It's cool you did the map. So here's this is a two-part question from two different individuals, and it talks about how were you drafted to become the language lexicon person for the Dragon magazines, and what's your what this in the Scarlet Brotherhood? There's like a Sewell language. Is that based on anything?
I think for the language articles, it was the dawn of the 3rd edition era, and Dragon had already established a very close relationship with what we call RPG R&D, which is the in-house group of designers and editors and creative and the creative managers who worked on D&D. And so they would come to us and be like, hey, we've got, ideas for some articles. Do you have any ideas for articles? And I don't remember if they pitched it to me or I pitched it to them, but, I do like languages. I've always kind of had an interest in doing that sort of thing. And so I said, it'd be really great if we had one about Elvish and one about Dwarvish, or Elven and Dwarven. Sorry, that's what they were called in 3rd edition. And I think I did one on Draconic. But that also, this is another case where like Owen took over after me. So I think maybe he did Draconic and I did Orcish or Swaparoo, one of those. But it was just, hey, let's take little fragments of things and see if I can build a constructed language out of this. And I was a fan of Esperanto, which is a completely artificial constructed language. And so the idea of let's go and put pieces together and make it work, that was a fun intellectual challenge for me.
Sounds challenging. Yeah.
So for for Scarlet Brotherhood and the Sewell language, there were bits of that in various Greyhawk products, and there were bits of it in the Earth Journal website that people had kind of like added to. And I'm like, you know what, this works. And I know that there are some in-jokes that they had put in there. And so they kind of laughed when some of those in-jokes appeared in the book. And they're like, hey, this little joke I made is now in the book. Hey, it's official. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I like fun little Easter eggs that don't take you out of the setting. Like if I put a character in an adventure and you look at him and you think like, oh, that's Doctor Who. You'll be like, oh, why is Doctor Who in this Greyhawk adventure? But if there's some subtle reference, just like some in-joke on the message boards that doesn't break, things, just like, oh, so-and-so is making fun of this person with this word. Okay, cool. That's fine.
Yeah, the little Easter eggs there. Little, like if 5 people get the joke, you're happy. I do it all the time in my D&D adventures, absolutely.
There is in the Magic of Faerun book for 3rd edition, there is a spell that I wrote called Gedley's Electric Loop, and
what's it named? I'm right here.
Gedlee, Gedley's Electric Loop, and it's just a little like you can create this loop of electricity in an adjacent area, and it's a damaging spell. It's a low-level damaging spell. 3 years later, I'm at Interplay, and Josh, lead designer of the Forgotten Realms game that we were working on, says, hey, I just got an email from someone asking, is Gedley's Electric Loop named for Geddy Lee of Rush? I'm like, yes! Someone finally got it.
Yeah. You create a small stroke of lightning. It cycles through all creatures in the area. Hey, there you go. That's awesome.
That's cool. Gods and Magic book, I think. There is a spell called Prekliklin's, it's a magic item, Prekliklin's Book of Cults. And it is like this weird kind of like Cthulhu-esque weird sort of book of magic with spells in it. And it's written as if it was written in some other language and then translated like word by word into some other language and then into the language that's actually in the book. And in that setting, gnomes in the Pathfinder setting gnomes are from another dimension, and they just kind of like, they heard people talking and they're like, oh, that's a neat word, that's a neat word. And so they just took words from all these other languages and assigned their own meaning to them. So everyone, if you read that magic items description, it says this probably was translated through a gnome, right? Well, Preklicken is actually my derivation of, from the Cthulhu mythos. There is a book in German called Unausprechlichen Kulten, which means it's unspeakable cult. It's one of the, it's like a section of the Necronomicon. Well, if you mess Unausprechlichen Kulten into Preklicken's book of cults, that's what that book is. So there's a Cthulhu reference in that, if you know the whole derivation of it.
That makes it fun. That makes it, the writing, you're like, you know, someday someone's going to come to me and say, is that what that is? Yeah, that's just...
On this day of my daughter's wedding.
That's brilliant. I mean, just... So, because you told me about that, I Gedley's, and it's a lightning spell. I have a quasi-elementalist I added to the elementalist, which is, I'm going to add that spell in, so it'll be in the elementalist spell list in my game. That's perfect, because now I have, you know, having a Gedley in my, you know, it's brilliant. Yeah, really cool. And I imagine there's a lot of that. You look twice, Sean. You look twice at it. You're like, nah, you know, it's something that, like, you know, the Aquaman thing from Len, right? I mean, that's a little blatant, but you know, that people just, you take stuff from real life, you take stuff from comics or TV shows, or, you know, Star Blazers, whatever it may be, you know, the Dungeon Master, you know, the D&D movie, TV shows, and, you know, all that, and that's really cool. So, wow. All right, Patrick. Let me think about that. We'll talk about how we would do that. Patrick just offered to do something. Give out a couple Scarlet Brotherhood books in print as well with the other giveaways. Any other questions for Sean as we're going now? My phones are blowing up and everything.
Yeah, mine just blown up too. So
yeah, maybe it was someone for both of us at the same time.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure, but I'm going to silence it.
So, Sean, anything you'd like to say to the community? I know everyone here is really happy that you came on and really reminisced a little bit with the Greyhawk content, because it's you know, you have your eras of individuals. You have your first generations, the Jim Wards of the world, and you have you and, you know, those second generationers that really made some unbelievable content in that 2E, 3E era. You know, it's just wonderful stuff. So I know that the community is really happy that you decided to come on. If you have anything you'd like to say or ask to the community, be more than happy to. That was my wife. My wife just texted me, Dallas lost. Okay. All right. She's downstairs. She's texting. Yeah, the cow. Yeah, I hate. Well, good. It's good. It's good. I'm an Eagles fan.
Oh, it's good. Okay,
oh, yeah. That's great. I'm an Eagles fan. So, yeah.
So I don't really have a question for the community, but I would like to say that I know that before I was a full-time designer and I was the TSR internet guy, I butted heads with some very ardent Greyhawk fans because they were carrying a grudge with about how Greyhawk had been mistreated in historically by the company. Probably partly because it was Gary Gygax's setting and they didn't want to kind of strongly associate with that. And so things like some of the choices in From the Ashes, like people didn't like that. And so there was a strong anti-TSR sentiment. And me being the face man for TSR at the time, I got a lot of that. And I want to say that when I started writing stuff for Greyhawk and people started liking the stuff for Greyhawk, I really appreciate that people were willing to look at the stuff that I wrote with an open mind and go, okay, is Sean making the effort to know the setting and love the setting and write things that are true to the setting? And like, I will tell you that I did all those things. And I think that people can see that in the books, the words that has come through. And that has been my philosophy for writing everything. Like, I'm not going to write something that I don't have any interest in. So if you're going to give me a Greyhawk book to write, I'm going to make that the best Greyhawk book that I can. And I have had so many people over the years come up to me at conventions or message me over online and say, I really like this book. This is my favorite book. Or, hey, would you sign this? Because this is a really good take on this. And I just want to say, I really appreciate you giving me the chance to prove myself to you.
Very kind.
That's
it's
awesome.
Humbling.
Thank you.
Just that, you put that much. I know a lot of people were writing and just, popped out content, but you really immersed yourself in it and was cognizant of what was going on. And you can see it in the writing. Slaver, Scarlet Brotherhood, especially.
Yeah.
You can just it is a. I'm going to go back to this book. It is. I don't want to say the word Bible, but it's a core reference from my campaign of 42 years, and that is.
Yeah,
I'm thankful. Honestly, I'm thankful that I have that. It's helped me. Yeah.
Same thing with Scarlet Brotherhood and Slavers are among my top Greyhawk products of all time, so to speak, especially Scarlet Brotherhood. That's up there with the Marklands and the ones that I enjoy the most. And Living Greyhawk Gazetteer is definitely that, and the 83 box set are the top ones, and because those are the ones that explains the world to me, and I just love that part of more than adventure modules, but the setting source books are the key thing. I have one question I want to ask that I think it's kind of interesting in times like this, especially since we've had a pandemic for a few years and now we're starting to get out of it. When you run your own games and stuff, how do you play them? Are you an online gamer? Are you around the table only? Do you use VTT or how do you go about it, so to speak, or how your preferred? Because now there's so many different ways of enjoying our hobbies, so to speak. So how would you want to go about it?
So I very much like playing in person. My home campaign is a Talus campaign set in Talus, which we recently updated for 5e and Cypher system.
Nice.
I'm running it in Cypher. It was actually my group of players was originally my Numenera campaign, and then I needed to start playtesting the Cypher version of Talus. I said, hey, would you mind us just rolling this over into Talus? And they said, sure. And so we had been playing in person, and then the pandemic happened, and we kind of like stumbled around for a little bit, and then so let's try playing on Zoom, which was fine. And we, eventually we got vaccinated, and we were very careful, and we were, tracking, like so and so has gone out of town on a plane, so they shouldn't be seeing us in person. I was also playing in Monty's Invisible Sun game at the time, which was a game meant to be played in person. Like literally, it has all these tokens and tchotchkes and cards and stuff that like it enriches the experience by playing it in person. And we made the shift to playing online for a good 6 months before the vaccines and stuff became available, and we all were very, very, very cautious. So, I mean, it's challenging dealing with online, but I just try and take care of myself. I respect my health and my family's health, and when I went to Gen Con, I did a COVID test in the morning and tested negative every single time, and I came home and tested negative for 4 days before I allowed myself to like interact with my family. So it's different playing online, but it's doable. I mean, this is kind of like the hybrid life we have now. But I prefer playing in person. Like I just got back from GameholeCon a couple of weeks ago, got to run 3 or 4 in-person games of various game systems, and it's just super fun seeing like right up in people's faces of their excitement and their fear of when their character's about to die, and you can just tell, and you're like, oh, you'll ease back a little bit just so they're not like going to be super worried. It's a fun dynamic, and as an extrovert, I'm very much a be in person sort of person anyway, but I just gotta respect people's health.
Any off chance of GaryCon next year?
Here's the thing. I lived in Wisconsin for 2 years.
Okay.
GaryCon is in March, and I've lived in Wisconsin in March, and it's very cold and snowy, and I'd rather not do that. That's like I've been invited a couple of times, and I'm always kind of like,
they have to move
like
it to June or something, or July or something.
And I get why. I mean, it's Gary Godkix's birthday. That's why you want to have it around then. So maybe eventually someday I'll just need to dress very warmly, because I have been living in Seattle for off and on for 20 years now, and I've lost much of my cold tolerance from being in Wisconsin.
It is cold.
I hear you. I moved to Southern California from Sweden 10, 12, 11 years ago, and I've lost my cold tolerance too. I didn't have much to begin with, and it's terrible, but I brave it. So yeah.
So
hey, can I add something to the idea of giving away stuff?
Yeah.
So I like to give away dice. Like, I'm not a dice hoarder. I know a lot of gamers are always collecting dice, and they have a collection of thousands of dice. I have dice that fit like 1.5 dice bags worth. I like to, like, if I ship something out to somebody, I'll throw a couple of dice in there. I put a pocket full of dice in when I travel. So I'm going to go to a convention, and I had dice for people. I've got a handful of my own dice right here. Can we just add that to the random giveaway, and someone can just be like my dice? And I've got all sorts. I got some Tallest dice. I've got some old Chessex dice. I have the probably can't see it here, but like these white D10s with the purple. Those are the official Dark Elf Underdark D&D dice they released like 6 or 7 years ago. So I'll just throw in some dice to somebody.
Continental US only, please. Okay, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna do continental US only on that. So we got 4 giveaways. We got a copy of, and it'll be direct shipped right through RPG, courtesy of Patrick. We got a copy of Scarlet Brotherhood, $20 gift certificate, Troller Games, $10 gift certificate, Troller Games, and the Sean K. Reynolds personally used dice. And so, we'll need full names and addresses on the 2 of those items. Okay, if you win those 2, please keep on putting your names in. I think we had a Monty Cook Games specific question, Sean. I want to make sure if this is you. Any news on the next forms Invisible Sun might take? Is that you? I just had a session today with 2 players, both with the Raise a Child character arc, and it was God of War time. I don't know what that meant.
I think the God of War time is probably referring to the God of War video game.
Oh, it's not you. Okay, I did not know. I did not know if it was any of yours going on. So I guess it wasn't.
Well, the general question of like, what are we going to do with Invisible Sun?
Okay.
That's a really good question, because we love that game. We love that setting. It's Monty's favorite thing that he's ever done.
Okay.
Okay. It's really expensive to make, and that's why it's a really expensive product. And if we could find a way to make Invisible Sun in a lower cost sort of way, we would love to do that. And that would also mean we could make more supplements for it, because right now, if we make more supplements to Invisible Sun, there is a fixed number of people who will be able to use that. And those are the people who have the black cube. And so the idea of like continuously hoping to get this small audience to buy more stuff is like, we'd rather have a wider audience. So we're looking into it. We would love to find a really excellent solution so that more people could be playing and we could do more for it.
Les just said Invisible Sun is pricey, but as a physical object in a game, it's impressive as hell. There you go. All right, cool. At first, awesome. I'm educated there. I did not know. And it really kind of you, Sean. Thank you for the dice giveaway there. So last questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. We don't want to keep Sean too long here. We really appreciate your discussion and coming out and chatting with us. I know the community just eats up this. And we have a map now that I didn't know existed. And that was another question. Did you ever do any maps specific to the Greyhawk setting?
I mean, anything that I did appear in books. So the Scarlet Brotherhood, Slavers, etc. Those regional maps almost certainly.
Okay.
I say almost certainly because I know that Slavers was also partly a Chris project, but the sketch maps of that went to the cartographer, which was at the time either Sam Wood or Rob Lazzaretti or someone on Rob's crew. Those were based on my drafts.
Cool. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Wonderful. So, okay. We'll do, since Sean's here, we'll do some shout outs real quick. Then we'll do the giveaways, and then we'll get on moving. We'll find someone to raid into. We do. So something, Sean, that you may not be aware of is once a month, myself and Alyssa Faden have the Fantasy Mapping Show. For example, we were talking about that a little bit. All right, wrong button, Jay. Wrong button. Another wrong button. Oh my God, dummy. It's here somewhere. Let me think. For example, we have this coming up on next Friday, where Ed shows us his originals. So if you ever want to come on for a bit and discuss some of the things about cartography, we could always schedule to do that down the road. It's a once a month show, so we have some fun with that
in a year or whatever. That will be awesome. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at all those wrong buttons. You guys really love me. Crazy. All right, so Sean, what else would you like to shout out? What else is going on? Personal works or anything else? New product.
Where can we find you, so to speak, on the interwebs and stuff?
Twitter.
Yeah.
So I'm still on Twitter while Twitter exists.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Yeah, but I am at Sean K. Reynolds on Twitter. I have a WordPress blog that I don't update very often, but the link for that is in my Twitter bio. It's seankreynolds.wordpress.com. I have thought about starting up a Patreon because I specifically, you were showing the Strange Register NPC books that I published through Malak Press. I want to take a look at those and update them from 3rd edition to 5th edition and Cypher System, and just talk about why I made certain design choices back in the 3E era and why that choice doesn't matter anymore, perhaps because the rules changed in 5E or there's a thing that just doesn't exist anymore, etc. But I have not done that yet. So mostly I occasionally post on my WordPress blog, which has anything from goofy things that happened to me, like when a guy pulled a butterfly knife on me at a Starbucks, to just kind of the behind the scenes stuff for various books that I've written.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Anna is the queen of Patreon.
Well, I have about 400 patrons now, so it's good. So Patreon is a good platform, so to speak. So it's if you want to keep at it, that will be awesome to have you on Patreon.
My question is, would people want to see that sort of stuff from me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm sure a lot of people would. So yeah, I would definitely be interested. So yeah, so
definitely. I think, and the great thing is we have a community here. We can immediately advertise it to you're on Patreon now. It would, I'd be more than happy to help you, get going with that. So definitely, I think it'd be big letters at yes in chat. So yeah, definitely.
A lot of yeses here.
And Alyssa's Patreon's doing well, and Anna's is doing great. And a lot of my Gamescape 3D, my print, one of my 3D print companies has a huge Patreon, and it's a community grower. So definitely it's a great idea, Sean. Pick Anna's brain on that, and once you're ready, reach out to me and we'll help advertise the hell out of it. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Oh, of course. All right, so great things going on. Let's do the giveaways. Anna and I can do shout outs real quick afterwards. We'll get the giveaways going here. Here we go. Last call. You got 4. Sean's dice. Personally used Sean K. Reynolds dice, right? A reprint of Scarlet Brotherhood. That'll be direct ship from Drive-Thru RPG, courtesy of Canadian Ancient Gamer, and from Troller Games sponsoring tonight a $20 and a $10 gift certificate to their store. All right, so we got 4 tonight. All right, let me close it out. Do that real quick, and we'll see who. And then whisper me the address, and what I will do is I will send it to my connection with Sean. I'll send all the information to him to get the dice sent out. Sound good, Sean, to work it that way?
Yeah, and feel free to use a fake name if you don't want me to know your real name.
Yes, but not like what Rich would use. No Lord Brezen shipping there, Rich, out there. None of that stuff. Lord Brezen is a Sewell elitist persona, right? So we actually had him on the show once on Legends and Lore once. That was entertaining to say the least.
He's Sewell, really Sewell.
Yes, we'll close this out here. Thanks, George. It was definitely a great show.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. You got to tell me which one you want. I'm assuming the first winner is going to want the dice. Rich, now you're in Canada.
Oh, wow. There you go. Talking about them. Yeah.
You're in Canada, so...
you know what? I'll do that. That's fine.
Sure.
If you want the dice, yeah.
Okay. All right, Rich. Rich, you want the dice? Longitalis, the Lord President himself.
Exactly, I was going to say, we talked about Lord President and he won.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
let's see.
So that was very appropriate. Yep.
He won. I want the Sewell Blessed dice. All right. I already. I should already have Rich's address, so a name and address. I can get that right to you. I really appreciate that, Sean. Thank you so very much. Next winner, Grats, Rich. You can't say it was fixed, everyone. It was no way there, but Norker.
Oh, that's another cool.
Yeah, Norker. Do you want Troller
mm-hmm.
Game 20? Troller Game, 20, obviously, or do you want the Scarlet Brother reprint? You tell me, Norker. You're up, but Troy's like rigged. Oh my gosh, Norker. Yep, gotta let me know, Norker, what you want. Mm-hmm. Either do you want the Scarlet Brotherhood reprint, or do you want the $20 Troll Lord? You tell me. Next winner, Blue Rugby. Congrats. Still waiting on Norker. Scarlet Brother reprint, Norker. Okay, I think I have your name and address, but put it all into put it in direct Discord. I know you're on Discord. Is Blue on? Blue's on. Blue,
he's on.
Blue, $20 gift certificate to Troller Games. Chuck hasn't given me the code tonight, so you got to wait a day. All right, please. He swears he'll get it to me tomorrow. And the fourth winner for the $10. There you go, Sagat P. I know you just recently have been joined the community and joined the Discord, so you get the $10
awesome.
Troller gift certificate. So I know how to get a hold of you as well. All right, so Blue, Rugby, and Sagat, and awesome. So Anna, real quick, what do we got going on besides the fantasy mapping show on Friday?
Bunch of we have that going on. I'm working on the 598 to 2022 Atlas. I've soon done half of the maps. It will be the whole big map, including Hippolyta, split up into 100 or 98 small pieces, each letter size, so to speak. And so that is 1/3 done now. So, and the other big project right now is that I'm going to build a new computer. Hopefully I can go in and get it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, early to mid this week. And so I put together a budget of $6,000. So I'm going to get myself a beefy desktop again. The other one is 5 years old. And I already have the graphics card. So that will be a lot of juicy storage and stuff. So I'm going to terrorize some people down at Micro Center first and see if they can deliver something for me. We'll see. And also I published for my top tier patrons, I published the source files for the 576 province map of Shieldlands. So that is coming, all the source files for that. And also I published from my Meyerhawk, so my campaign, the some of the fauna of Greyhawks. So I took the what is the biggest prey item, so to speak. So it's the hang on a second here. I need to go back here. So it's So we have the big mighty bulls, or it's not bison, it's actually the aurochs. So I have in my campaign. So I put the rules where they live and the history and how they came in and so on and so forth. A little bit more than just the monster stats. So that will tie in. I will, because we have all these weird monsters, but I wanted to publish what are living out there in nature, so to speak. And I beefed them up a little bit. This is a challenge for critters, so to speak. So it's have a herd of them and you can be in trouble. So that there are kind of things that you can put in and use in your campaign with spread maps and the shebang, and some cool art that I've taken from Midjourney and photoshopped and stuff. So they look cool that way too. There is more coming on in that series too. I have probably about 20 or so monsters lined up of various kinds. Some of them are exotic, some of them very mundane. A couple of cats are coming in that series, and there is a heraldry template is coming in a couple of days, so you can do heraldry the way I've done it, so to speak. So that is coming. It's almost done, that post too. So yeah, that's what's going on at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome. And we got a lot of other things going on. Altamira is going to really be cranking up because I finished work. I work like 6 days in December, and then I am just writing for that.
Yep.
And then I got a thing going showing with Troller Games, so we're jointly. Hopefully I don't screw it up too bad, right, Anna?
No, you
All right, this is what's going on this week. And I got these all out. I got these all out of order because I'm messing around. Legends and Lore Wednesday. Casey has mostly confirmed. Living Greyhawk Yeomanry people will be on triads. So Sean, we've had these from all over. We just had Stuart Kerrigan's group for Onwall on, and Paul Luby and them, and now we're going to do the Yeomanry next. We've been doing this for the last 2.5, 3 years. Yeah, August Ton. All right, cool. So Casey says that'll kick off the week Wednesday at 8. I got 5 streams, 5 straight days this next week coming up. My wife's going to divorce me. So Thursday night we're going to continue our adventure with the Narwhal Headhunters, the Initiates and Standoff in the Morass. That is Thursday night. That's a Gamescape 3D giveaway. Also, we're going to show the new lighthouse that you saw in the advertisements that Buildmaster Crafter's done. We have that done for our campaign. It's going to look really fantastic. Ed Greenwood's on Friday nights for the Fantasy Mapping Show, which is always thanks, Bones. You still mad at me from last night? She was upset from last night's adventure. Ed Greenwood. Yeah, well, Eric Boyd has a half ogre priest of Heronius, Sean. 7'7", and he decided they're in a swamp. So he said, "I'm going to put a board and attach it to my back and let someone stand on it." And so her bandit's on it, fumbles, falls off, breaks her arm. That's not my fault, right? There you go. It was fun. It was a fun time last night. We had. I don't want to talk about it. Oh, you survived. It was fun. Tim. The Ever Mysterious Tim's Rovers of the Barrens campaign continues Saturday morning at 8 a.m. That'll be the Saturday stream, nothing Saturday night. And then next Sunday, more than likely, Tim, Anna, and myself will continue our Dungeon Magazine Adventures Greyhawk content series, part 5. We're around Dungeon 100, so we'll probably get through 6 of them on Sunday night. And that's what's going on. So we're going to find someone to raid into. Sean, thanks. Thank you so very much. Anything you need from us from the community, please reach out anytime. And I'll be in touch with you and with that address. And you've always been, easy to get a hold of on Twitter, and I really thank you for that. And for the insight, you're always putting up some nice anecdotes and things. And I've always appreciated your candor with a lot of things going on in the world and with in the gaming industry, and I know that the community loves it too. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Anna. I really appreciate you having me on your show.
Awesome. And I hope you have a good night. And we're gonna raid into Guild Superior, because I know that Bones is on there as Darling's on there playing right now. No, not Salty, not anywhere. Good. Well, you were two-fisting it last night, Bones, drinking, but that's part of the 2-drink minimum. And I'll say this one last thing. Ed said to me when we were done last night, that was the most fun I've had playing in a D&D campaign in a long time. Because what we did was we mixed 2 adventuring groups, and he said he had a blast. He couldn't stop laughing the whole time. And that's part of getting together, playing D&D with your friends. That's what it's all about. Yep. So, and that made me feel good that Ed had fun playing with all these ladies who were much more crude than Ed ever is. So he goes, "Normally I'm the one getting in trouble for being crude." So that made it real fun. So we'll see you all. See you all Wednesday night. For Anna, Sean, and myself, everyone have a great night. Thank you. Talk to you soon. I hit the right button for a change. All right, let me set the rate up real quick, and we're out of here. Sean, I'll get you that address as soon as it comes over to me. I'll send it to you via our connection here. Let me set this rate up. Are they done? Am I trying to rate into someone who's done? No, they're still running. They're still playing. All right, we're going to have like almost 90 some people going in, almost 100. 5.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. 4. Nice numbers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you Wednesday. Awesome. Just go offline here.